Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go. Hey, are you on the hunt for someone or something specific in our industry? Maybe you need a sale graphic built for a horse you're selling. Maybe you're looking for a bookkeeper who understands farm and ranch finances. Maybe you need a promo video built for your company, a website refresh, a business consultant, whatever it may be. You can find all of those and a whole lot more inside of the West's directory. It's the only place online where you can connect with freelancers and contractors who are all based in the agriculture and Western industries. You don't have to explain the nitty-gritty details of our industry because they already understand it. You can search by category, location, type of program they need to work in. Any way you can think of needing to search and finding somebody, you can do it. I promise life just got a little easier. To get started, you can go to ofthewest.co/directory. Welcome to this week's episode of Leaders of the West. Today we are sitting down with one of the women that I absolutely would consider to be a role model in my life, both personally, professionally. She has an incredible business mind. She has the kindest heart of any woman I think I've ever met. She is incredibly stylish, like really, truly, the list goes on. She is an all-around cowgirl, if you will. And I absolutely love her, and that is Jodi Hendrickson. So you guys may be familiar with Jodi because she is the founder, CEO, and designer behind Fringe Scarves, which is one of my favorite wild rag companies. I say one of my favorite, like the only wild rags I will wear are Fringe Scarves because they are 100% silk. They are what a true cowboy wild rag is supposed to be because silk is what keeps you warm in the winter. And that's why we have wild rags. But obviously, they are now more of a fashionable element as well. I still love silk. But all of that to say, this conversation is really, really special for me because, like I said, I really, truly admire Jodi, who she is, what she's created, what she stands for. She and I have been friends since, I would say, 2017, 2018. And in that time, I have obviously gotten to know her and the woman that she is. And I've also been able to see her business grow and transform. And it has been just a really, really cool thing to see. And nobody deserves it more, which is why I'm bringing her to you guys today. So we're going to talk about business, her really impressive career, the variety of accolades that this woman has. You guys you're in for a real treat. And then obviously the business side of things. And she's going to give us some fashion tips as well. So let's get to the conversation. Welcome to the show, Jodi Hendrickson. Jodi, you have such a unique story, and I feel like I've known you forever, even though it's probably only been, like 5 or 6 years, but you have done so much in your lifetime, and I really want to unpack a lot of that today. So to kind of set things up and set our listeners up for what they may hear today, can you tell us about where you grew up, kind of the path that you've taken throughout your career, and where you're at now as the founder, CEO, and designer of Fringe Scarves?
Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's likewise, it's been such a pleasure to know you and have met you. And I also feel like I've known you forever. I think some of our connection is probably the ranch. You know, I grew up on a ranch as well. And to answer your question, I grew up on a ranch in Buffalo, South Dakota, or near Buffalo, South Dakota, about 33 miles out of Buffalo, which is a northwestern corner. We had a cow-calf operation, so I was steeped in that. We rodeoed, all my life. Also, just my parents were great role models. My dad is a livestock auctioneer, sells a lot of horse sales and bull sales, along with ranching. And my mom is just a true cowgirl. She's a ranch lady and still, she's 78 this year, is still out there, riding, moving cows and calving. And so she's pretty cool. So I just had great role models and a great life. I mean, I love the ranch life. I miss it. I miss it every day. The little town I went to school in it was a town of 300 and some people, Buffalo, and our mascot was Ranchers. So we were the Hardin County Ranchers. I had 24 kids in my grade. Everybody's there. Most people rodeoed or had family that ranched. So most of us ranch kids it was always fun in the winter because we were all in sports. And so we would drive to town and stay with a family. So we would get a family that would kind of bring us in and we would stay with them so that we could do sports because the weather was so bad, So we all had fun. We were all stuck in town and all these ranch kids, just had a blast. So it was a cool way to grow up and still just the salt of the earth, neatest people in that area. So
I was going to say, I've always said that if I didn't live in Idaho, I may move to South Dakota minus the winters just because the people there are so cool.
They're great. The ranching people there are like anywhere. It's so neat, being able to live in different places and have, been in Texas now for, I don't know, almost 27 years, I think. The country people, the ranch people, it's just, you always gravitate to that lifestyle and that kind of code that there is. I don't know what it is, but there's just wonderful people. The ranch community, wherever you go, is just awesome, I feel like.
Oh, I completely agree. So after high school, I may be wrong on this, but you college rodeoed, is that correct?
Yeah, I went to SDSU, South Dakota State University in Brookings, and rodeoed for them all 4 years. My brother went there too. We had a great team, great group of girls. So many wonderful memories during that time. After I was done graduating, I actually had one semester left after I was done rodeoing. So I did my fall semester and then I graduated and I went to the Denver market when it used to be in Denver and interviewed with Equibrand. And I got the job and went home and helped my dad calve for like a month and a half. Or not, we weren't calving. We were just feeding. So it was January and it was a horrible blizzard that year. And I just remember thinking, I'm taking that job. I'm going to Texas because we had dug everything out, just trying to get down to the cows. And it was a miserable little stretch and it kind of tipped it for me. And so like a month and a half later, I moved to Texas and did the Houston Livestock Show for Equibrand.
I didn't know you worked for Equibrand. I just learned something new.
Yeah, Ken and B were my first bosses. So it was super cool.
Well, and now you guys really are like the best of friends. I was just about to say that, which is so cool. I have so much respect for the two of you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, she's awesome.
After Equibrand, what next?
So I was at Equibrand for about almost 3 years, and I've just got this bug in me to travel and go do new things, and always wanted to go to Europe. And so I loved working at Equibrand, but I just had this in me that I knew I had to go do this before I, settled down, the next chapter of my life, that sort of thing. And I was rodeoing when I was down here, when I first got down here, and I was doing all the WPRA stuff. And I had won the Rookie Healer of the Year that year. And so I, had this cash in my pocket and I decided I'm going to use this money and I'm going to go backpack across Europe. So I had to get the guts to get in front of Ken and B and tell them that I was quitting and going to Europe. And they were like, what? But it was just something, sometimes you just know you have to do something. And so I traveled backpacked across Europe for like 2 months and my backpack and stayed in hostels. And it was something I will never regret. And it was old school. We didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone and I had a little book and I would just hop from one train. Like it was just a kind of a dream for me. So I did that. And when I got back, I worked for a kind of a web design when the internet was just really kind of taken off. And I worked for a web design company for a while, but it was driving almost 2 hours sometimes because it was bad traffic to Dallas area. I was really looking for something closer to home and an opening came up at Western Horseman and Butch Morgan was the one that kind of got me in there. And I went to work for Western Horseman magazine and then was there for almost 10 years with their groups of magazines. So I'd work with Western Horseman. Then I managed their book division. And then I ended up taking over their B2B titles. So like Western Lifestyle Retailer, Equestrian Retailer. We had a vet magazine. So that I ended doing that portion of it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were one of like the brains behind Western Lifestyle Retailer and kind of its creation. Is that correct?
I think some of the movement in it, I would have been at the very beginning of, but it was started by Rick Swan and Dan DeWeese. And I think Rick was running Equestrian Retailer, and that's why they started the fashion side of that, because they needed Equestrian Retailer is more tack and that kind of thing, and they wanted to do something more fashion. And Rick had kind of brought me on because I'd been doing some fashion stuff and photo shoots. And so, yeah, I mean, I was there from the very beginning and did all their photo shoots and their fashion and then became the publisher.
And for those of you who are maybe not familiar with the title Western Lifestyle Retailer, it was, as you mentioned, more of a B2B magazine, specifically really focused on telling the story of the Western lifestyle brands and featuring products for retailers to read. So something kind of different than other magazines that are maybe like on your store shelves today.
Yeah, you basically had to be a retail store to subscribe. And we would talk a lot about merchandising. And at that time, we were really talking about how to get and execute and beyond, have a web presence, because that was really the hot thing and everything was kind of moving that direction. But, my love were the fashion shoots. So I loved the fashion side of it. But we did do a lot of e-commerce talk and stuff like that as well.
Well, and you are one of the most fashionable women I know, which we are going to get to that in a hot minute. But so obviously we've talked now about high school, college, Equibrand, backpacking through Europe, coming back to Morris Communications, having a 10-year career there, which all sounds absolutely wonderful and rosy. But there were some tough times in there. Specifically, you were diagnosed with Lyme disease.
Yeah, I had been feeling really bad and was just confused at what was going on and just getting to where, and I had 2 babies at home, I had them back to back, and I had some issues. I was hospitalized for like a week back when I first moved to Texas, and they could never figure out what it was. And they really thought it was Lyme disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever or something like that. But I never tested positive, which is extremely hard to test positive for. Kind of got my life back in order then. And then, lived my life kind of towards the end of Western Horseman, was feeling bad again and having this kind of feeling like I did before. And finally got a diagnosis, and it was Lyme disease. And I basically, at that time, wasn't stopped working. I was at home. It took me about 10 years to get over it. I would fly out I found a doctor that was really good. I went through several doctors, and Lyme disease is just super tough. I really lost my 30s. I was at home. My husband had put my shirts on. I couldn't lift my arms up. My joints were so in pain. I couldn't even dress myself, and just went through a lot, learned a lot. God put me with the best Lyme doctor in the world, and he was in Seattle, Washington. And that sounds like a lot, but I had tried so many, and I was a very complicated case. I had chronic Lyme disease, and it was very neuro-based. So Dr. Klinghardt, who's out of Seattle, he's from Germany, and he would fly into the United States every so often. And I would get a plane ticket out there. He was really no more expensive than anyone else because I would only have to go once a year, and the rest of the time I could do it over the phone, and we'd just do labs. And so it was actually a cheaper way for me to get, because it's a very expensive disease to cure from. A lot of insurance companies don't want to touch you, and it's just kind of frustrating, I guess. So those 10 years were tough, but I learned a ton.
Well, and it's not easy to get on a plane and fly from Texas to Seattle when you feel like crap and you are like moving hurts and you can't lift your arms above your shoulders to put your shirts on. Like, that is incredibly challenging.
Yeah, and the hardest part is, we were so far from family. So my husband would have to stay home with the girls. And so I just went by myself. But yeah, I look back and I think, you really shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have driven a car. All these things, but you just make it work, you got to get better.
So what would you say that you learned about yourself in that 10 years worth of time?
I learned that I'm a survivor. I learned that nothing's too big for me. Yeah, it was a hard time.
Well, and I think that too, because those of us who are listening and are involved in agriculture or Western industry, obviously Lyme disease is something that you get from being outside, and we are a very outdoorsy driven population of America. So I know that a number of our listeners have been either diagnosed with Lyme disease, or maybe they haven't, because like you said, it is so impossible to actually quote unquote test positive for, and they're struggling with things and they think, oh, well, maybe that might be what I had. So I think that it's just important for other people who feel like they're in the bottom or like the depths of where they are to hear about the story of somebody who for 10 years had to basically not pursue a career and lost those years of her 30s and is absolutely thriving now. Like, there is hope.
Yeah, there is hope. I would tell anybody, don't get bitter. Your situation is something that can make you pretty angry about losing out on things and not getting to do the things. Don't do that. Like you are doing, this is happening to you. And I used to hate when people would say this, but for a reason. And it is, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn things you just never knew, and that it is going to get better. If you do the things, get with a really good Lyme doctor, make sure that person is tried and true and has talked to several people that doctor has cured, and then feel comfortable with your choice, and then do everything they say, because you're going to have to do some of the craziest things that you never thought you would have to do them, and be a very diligent little soldier, I guess, because it's a lot of pills, it's a lot of stuff, and you feel worse when you're getting treated, but there is definitely hope at the end of it. And find people that support you, because when you look fine, a lot of people don't believe you. You look great though, and you're like, you're just swimming, you can't even see. They've got like 5 heads in front of your face, but just know that it's your journey, and that God put you kind of in this lone journey for a reason, and it's going to be great, and you're going to have so much gratitude, and it made me appreciate everything. So.
Oh, I can totally relate to that, because if you have a cold or the flu, obviously you look like hell. So then people are like, oh, you must not feel great. But when you have, maybe it's an autoimmune disease of some kind, or like something that you are chronically fighting all day long, every single day, and you look like the perfect picture of health from the outside, that can also be so frustrating, because people then kind of forget about that. And you do feel like you are alone and by yourself. And that is hard for sure.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I hear that a lot from people, but yeah, I mean, you got to kind of ignore a lot of that chatter. So.
Okay. On to a happier note. After Lyme disease came Fringe Scarves. So here you really are like a phoenix. You've risen from the ashes and have now created the most incredible silk scarf company known to man. I know that you are somebody who is naturally creative and you are very business minded. What drew you to scarves, and what did you feel like was missing in the market?
It was Lyme disease that drew me to it. So the last couple years of having Lyme disease, I was getting better. I knew I was getting better, and I was just chomping at the bit to pick up my career. I had started Fringe magazine right before I got sick. And it was an online platform where I interviewed women. We had video. This is back in 2009. And I had done that for a while and had advertisers, all of that stuff. And I finally got my diagnosis, and I knew what I had to give up everything and go to work on Lyme disease. But that sat on the shelf then, Fringe, the cowgirl magazine. And when I started getting better, I was just 2 years before I started Fringe, I had really started thinking about what I wanted to do, how it had to work into my life, because if I have to take a nap, I'm going to take a nap every day. These are things that I wouldn't have been proud of my entire life, because you were supposed to be a worker, but I knew I had a new life and I had another chance at life. And so if I needed to rest, I knew I had to listen to myself. So it had to be something where I didn't commute anymore. It had to be on my own property. I really came out of Lyme disease knowing exactly what I knew I wanted in life. And so I finally honored myself, and I was like, what could I do that won't take up a lot of inventory room? I could start it in my bedroom, and I wanted to be in fashion again. I knew I wanted to be in the Western industry again. So I really always wore lots of wild rags, but I always wanted to have more fun with them. They were paisley. They were all, like a pattern that were just cut out. And I wanted them to be wild and fun, and designs that reflected who I was and used pieces of my past. So I just started, while I was still sick at the end there, I just started designing on my computer, because I did graphic design a lot at both Echo Brand and Western Horseman, and just started messing around. And I had 6 designs that I really liked. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, can I borrow $6,000? And I just found a company, and I printed them and sold them. I'd carried them around with me. People knew that I had the website, and so I'd sell them wherever I was. And I'd started doing Instagram stuff and doing photo shoots with all my scarves, which was really my strength, was the photo shoot side of it. I'm not saying my scarves were super, but at first. So I kind of threw it out there, and it took off. So.
When did you officially start Fringe Scarves?
In June of 2018.
Okay. So an 8-year progression now.
Yeah.
And the reason that I highlight this is there are so many people out there who think like, oh, a company is an overnight success. There is no such thing as an overnight success. You have been at this 8 years. And if I were to ask you, do you feel like you've made it? You're going to tell me no. Because we never feel like we've made it from the inside looking out, but from the outside looking in, it's obviously a very different picture. But you've been at work at this for 8 years. What would you say, though, because we do need to celebrate the wins, what are some of the highlights of your 8-year journey?
Well, it's actually been 6 years. So it's only 6 years, but it's because it was 2018.
Oh my gosh.
But
I can't do math today, you guys.
No.
I'm struggling.
I'm really surprised. But it's, the wins were, gosh, it was back in the, when I was first starting and I was just getting my confidence back. Those were the biggest wins, like somebody, trusted in me and bought a scarf that I made, I had kind of lost all my confidence in that time. And so just people wanting something I had, those were just huge wins. And I remember I was so grateful to have my life back and to have a career again. I remember, rolling around on my little chair from one scarf to the other to put them in an envelope to send to somebody. And I remember putting them in the package and I would just I would send a prayer. I would just bless them, because I had so much gratitude. It was so fun in those days because each person I filled their little bag. You know what I mean? I wrote them a personal note. And so the first 2 years were the best because it was just I was so connected and personally touched by the things and the trust they had and something I made, I guess. So those were big wins a lot back then.
On the flip side, what do you feel like have been some of the biggest challenges that maybe you have faced or overcame or didn't necessarily think that you would get through, but then have gotten through?
I was only about a year old, I guess, year and a half old when COVID hit. And it turned out to be a great part of my business, but having to kind of reorganize and have a new direction for what we were doing. We kind of went into the face wraps and we started just changing our platform a little bit. So that was a big challenge, because everyone was scared during that time of what was going to happen and what was happening to their businesses and that sort of thing. But I think everyone in our industry did pretty darn good because they just are scrappy. We find a new way to do something and we make sure it works. But I would say that. And then right now, a big issue is just scaling and when to bring a new person on. Full time, we have 2 people and we get a lot done. I mean, we do a lot between Lori and I. And then Alta, who's also working for us, is pretty close to full time. But thinking about bringing someone on and when to do that. And, you got to get to that pain point where, you're all maxed out before you bring on that next person. And, when do you do that? So that's challenging for sure.
No, it absolutely is. On that topic, I will say though, COVID could have been one of those things that like the retail industry saw as, oh, this is going to absolutely break us because people aren't going out. They have no need for clothes, whatever they have in their closet or accessory wise is going to work, but it did the absolute opposite. And I feel like that really flourished. And then again, with the Western industry and being part of that sector, that I have seen a number of brands like yours who have really thrived and flourished. But now with the economy, it can be difficult to scale, especially on the production side of things. In that time, you also branch out a little bit and you have released robes and shower curtains, which are all phenomenal.
Well, thank you.
How did you, again, decide, okay, we're going to pivot a little bit or add this into what we're already offering? Give us the details.
So I think, I really believed in, staying in my lane. I truly want to focus on doing one thing really, really well. But I also feel like you can kind of extend your brand and stay in this comfortable zone for yourself. Shower curtains are square, so are my designs. So they're very easy to transfer over into a shower curtain. And I also look for needs. Whenever I look for a shower curtain, I don't see great Western offerings. I'm sure they're out there. For me, it was an opening and I felt like our scarves could make a good showing in that space. We're also doing silk pillowcases and we're going to do, we have samples right now of outdoor pillowcases with some of our better designs. So we take some of our really great selling, designs, and then we're using on the kimono robes and the shower curtains, and then also pillowcases and pillows. That's really the extent. So we'll have like a little home offering and then really stick true to scarves and wild rags.
Well, I think that is amazing though, because again, you already have this design. Here is another way that if somebody absolutely loves the Fiesta in yellow, like yours truly does, then I can have it. I only need one wild rag, maybe a shorty, maybe a long one, but really I just need the two. So how can you take what you have already designed and then make it in other methods to where then people can continue to purchase those, which is genius.
I don't know about genius, but I think it's just kind of a necessary evil too, because I feel like, you have to be able to extend your brand some, without getting crazy. Again, I don't want to get outside of the world that we're really in. I want to focus and get that to be better and better all the time, get sharper with our designs. But there's definitely, like I said, there's definitely carryover into some other spaces. So it's been fun doing that for sure.
Oh, that is awesome. Okay, well, we cannot end today's conversation without talking about personal style. You are, honest to goodness, probably the most fashionable woman that I know. And part of that is because, in my opinion, being fashionable is really about having developed your own personal style versus just wearing things because, like, they're trendy, if you will. And even when you wear trends, because I've seen you are big on vests, which are obviously a hot thing right now. You do so in a way that really makes them look 10,000% Jodi Hendrickson and not necessarily like the trend at the time. How have you developed your style over the years?
Well, thank you. That is a huge compliment, especially coming from you, because you're amazing as well. I don't know, I think it's like anything that I do in my life. We all question ourselves. And I've always told myself from a very young age that when I do that, then I'm going to have to do it anyway. If should I do that? Now I have to do that, because it's who I am, because I think that you have to come back to being who you are. Being genuine is really important to me. My designs, I want them to be genuine. They're really part of me. And that doesn't mean that they always transfer to other people. So when I dress myself, I love vintage stuff. And I spent a lot of my youth in my 20s, digging through. If it was somebody set up a garage sale, I'd go through everything they had, and if they set up a good find was like huge to me. And pawn shops. And I love to go back to Rapid City, South Dakota and go through the pawn shops. And I don't do it as much anymore because I have no patience, but I built an amazing collection over the years of just old stuff. So I usually start with an old piece, like these earrings are really, really old. And then I just kind of build around it. I try to take one trendy piece. I wear lots and lots of denim shirts. So you'll probably see me wearing denim at some point or in my outfit. And then I just kind of build it around an old piece with a new trendy piece. Like I love Zara. So I'll go, because they usually have something very reasonable, cheap, and then I might even go find something at Walmart and mix that in there. I just like to, I don't want to look like everybody else. And that's not always good either.
I will say, you guys, Jodi, she is spot on about she always has on denim and a wild rag.
Yeah.
And while you guys can't see us right now, I specifically dressed myself like Jodi Hendrickson with the denim shirt. And obviously I've got my Canadian tuxedo on and my fringe scarf because I am committed to the craft here. But you really are. So, okay, we love vintage. We love to like find one piece and then build the outfit around that. What are some other maybe fashion secrets or tips or tricks that you can share? Things that you see people do and you in your head, you're like, man, there's a better way to do that, honey.
Well, I love layers. So I think layers just bring, and that's why I like wild rags too. So, and I love to tie my wild rags in really unique and different ways. So just, everyone's like, how do you tie them? I'm like, well, I just wind them around, however many times and like tie a knot, just get them on there. It's a layer, and that brings so much perspective and kind of an interesting look. So that's why I like vests. I love jackets. I just think layering is if I see somebody that's kind of put everything together and layered things, I'm like, oh, that's cool, and it's I think an art and something you have to practice, but layering's key, I think. I don't know.
Okay, so my next question is, how does one layer when they live in Texas? I don't have this problem.
That's been challenging.
I get to layer. But yeah, when you live in a warm climate, how do you layer?
I just wait for winter. I'm like, please come. No. Yeah, that's really hard. But there are ways to do it. So we came out with the Twillies, which is just a little strip of fabric. And that kind of was born out of me living in Texas now and, owning a scarf company and needing to show up at something in the summer with, a a scarf on. So the twillies are great for that. So I use that. I'll also tie those in my handbag. So that's kind of another layered look that you can get from doing that. We put them on our hats, like a straw, like fun summer hat. They're fun that way. But it's definitely challenging in Texas for that.
Well, and I will say,
During
I'm
the
always
summer.
a fan of things like pins too, because again, like you can put a pin on a shirt or a vest, and that's kind of another, like it's a fake layer in a way. Like it just gives this like the more dimensional look, which is really the point of layering.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can go as far as caps and, cool glasses and, I mean, just adding a little bit to your outfit. So it's just got a little bit more interest to it, I guess.
I love it. Okay. Let's go to the rapid fire round. What is the best piece of business or personal advice that you have ever been given?
Well, I thought of two. Really, I think I'll never forget my dad saying what his dad had told him. He's like, it doesn't matter when I was starting my work life, whether you're the janitor or whatever position you are, be the best janitor there. So whatever you're doing, do the best job better than anyone else. Work hard. Don't take any position as a slack job. If you do a phenomenal job, be the best at whatever you're doing. Try to anyway, That was a big one. And I think for me is being genuine again. You might not be the flash in the pan, the one that everyone looks at that walks into the board meeting, whatever. Maybe no one doesn't want to listen to you and you've sat there and you were quiet the whole time. But at the end, make sure whatever you say is genuine and not just to talk, I guess. So being genuine, I think, is so important because it always pays off in the end. It might not at the beginning, at the front end, but it will at the end.
Oh, I love that, which I love all of these, but yes, especially because it can be hard if you are somebody who is very humble and kind of quiet and you're going to let your work speak for itself. And you are amongst people who are always talking about themselves or boasting about themselves. And then you can kind of question yourself like, well, do I need to be talking about myself more? No, just like put your head down and keep working and your work will speak for yourself. And in doing so, you are playing the long game and your genuine nature, like that is going to show through.
Yes.
The rest of them, like you said, flash in the pan. It's not going to last. And that could be hard when you are like, you feel like you're kind of surrounded by that.
It can be. And I think you just put your head down and do more of what you're here to do. What was put in you, that seed that was put in you, just focus on that. And I mean, being quiet can be very, very loud. I've always been kind of that way. Yeah, always kind of the quiet one in the group, but I'm always thinking. And, if you're thinking and listening, you're going to have something valuable to input at some point when you're asked, Pretty soon someone's going to know what you're thinking about over there.
They totally will. If you could give people any words of wisdom and you knew that they would take them to heart, what would it be?
I think it kind of goes back to that genuine thing, but I think walk in your own direction, truly. And if you have an idea that comes to because we all struggle with this, we don't have the confidence to execute on a beautiful idea. But if you have an idea in your head, do it. And you don't have to do it now, but keep it somewhere in those recesses in your brain and do it because it was put there for a reason. God put it there for a reason. And it's your job to make it not a famous thing, not wide open. It could be just something simple within your home, but we have to be good stewards that way and go in your own direction because you could start heading in that direction and then you worry about so-and-so making fun of you or these people making fun of you or so-and-so. But if you turn around and follow the pack, you have no idea where that pack's going. They could be going off a cliff. They could be. So truly find your path, go in your direction and feel good about it, I think.
Well, and you are a living example of that, of somebody who started with Fringe magazine and then had to put that behind you for 10 years. And then from that came Fringe Scarves. And look how successful that has been. Like that is, again, the perfect example that you are living proof of.
I don't know. Well, thank you. I mean, it's a struggle every day for sure. Everything that you do, even if you're pretty confident in what you're doing, the world's pretty tough with social media now. So unfortunately.
Oh, it is. Okay. If you could go to dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Oh gosh. I kind of have three. Can I do three?
You can give us all three, of course.
Okay. So I've always loved Ralph Lauren. So I would love to go to dinner with Ralph Lauren. Big fan of his. The other two, this is crazy, but I would love to get to talk to Sitting Bull, the famous Sioux chief. And I would also like to visit with JFK.
Can I be the fifth person at this dinner table? Holy cow, those are good ones.
Yeah, you definitely can. Let's do it.
Not that I would expect anything less, but yeah, Ralph, Sitting Bull, JFK, sign me up.
Exciting, right? We want to know what they're thinking.
Oh, okay. What is one quote that you lead your life by?
So I had this on my computer for almost 10 years at Western Horseman, and it's an Eleanor Roosevelt quote. And it's, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face.
Yes.
It still makes me kind of almost tear up. I just think it's so important. Fear's a killer, and I think that if you have fear, you have to really ask yourself why and kind of confront it,
Yeah. Is it the thing that you're looking at, or is it more inside of you? Like, are you the reason that there is fear? Okay. Last question. Let's talk about your favorite things. Do you have a favorite? Maybe it's a podcast or a book or a service or something that has like changed your life in some way. Maybe it's a life hack. Share it with the people, Jodi.
I loved Ralph Lauren's autobiography.
Ooh.
It's such a great story. It's phenomenal. So that's a great book. I love everything by Carolyn Myss. She's a spiritual writer, and she's kind of what got me through Lyme disease. So I love all of her books. Those would be, they'd be really my two favorites of all time. I don't know about life hacks. I can't think of anything.
That's okay. I wrote those down, and I will make sure that we include those in the show notes. So if somebody else is interested in them, they can pick them up. Last question for you today. If somebody wants to go buy Fringe Scarves, where can they shop? Where can they follow you online? Where can they see more about what you're wearing, which you probably should start an outfit of the day. Real. I'm just here to encourage you because you do look so fabulous every single time I see you. Pimp yourself out, Jodi.
So if you want to come check out our stuff on our website, it's Fringe, like Fring, Fringe on your jacket, scarves, fringescarves.com. Same for Instagram and Facebook. So you can follow us those two places. We do some how to tie videos on our website. We're about to come out with a how to tie book. Should be here about next week. So we're going to have a little book that shows, because everyone's like, how do you tie? And I've always wanted to do the book. It just took us, actually been working on this for like 3 years. I'm finally going to have this printed and ready. So we'll have that on our website as well. But yeah, fringescarves.com. And then of course we have wonderful retailers. And if you want to just reach out to us, like we have a contact link at the bottom of our site. We can let us know where you are, and we can reach out and let you know what stores are close to you.
Who might be local, so that if you want to see them in person, then you have the opportunity to do so. Okay. Well, thank you, Jodi, so much. Anytime that we get to see each other, which is never often enough, I always love and appreciate our conversations. And I really do. Like, I leave and my cup has been filled. You are one of my very small group of women who I really admire and look up to in life in all things, both like business, creatively, who you are as a person, how you treat people. Like, you really are the all-around cowgirl of sorts. And so I am so thankful that I got to share you with our listeners today. This has been an episode that has been a long time on my list just because of the type of person that you are and who you are, and you have a heart of gold, and I just adore you. So with that, thank you guys for listening. As you know, we will be back here next week, and I highly encourage you, go to Fringe's website, snag a wild rag. You will not regret it.
Thank you, Jessie.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.